According to Steve Sarkisian, Texas might get Quinn Ewers back this week. And so we'll talk about the Texas quarterback situation. And honestly, how much does it matter? Plus, TCU has a few wide receivers out as well. We'll update you on that and more next. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us wherever it is you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, et cetera, wherever it is you listen in audio variety. Please subscribe on those platforms as well. You can rate and review the show. I'm at SimcockSteven on Twitter. The show is at Locked On TCU. And we have updates from both Steve Sarkisian and Sonny Dykes as TCU prepares to take on Texas under the lights at A. Carter Stadium, 6:30 kickoff on Saturday night. So I said on Monday that I would assume Malik Murphy would end up being the starter for the Longhorns. But later on Monday in the afternoon, apparently that changed a little bit. Quinn Ewers was listed by Steve Sarkisian as day-to-day. He's been practicing. He's been throwing in practice. So he might be back this week. And so I wanted to look quickly at where Texas is at the quarterback position and how both guys have done this year. Quinn Ewers has had a really good season, and I would imagine that he has a lot of motivation to play well in this game if he does end up being the guy for Texas. Because last season when they played TCU, that was like the low moment of the Quinn Ewers era. I mean, TCU sold out to stop Bijan Robinson. They did it really well, and Ewers had opportunities to hit Xavier Worthy, especially deep, and couldn't do it. He turned the ball over a few times, couldn't convert some fourth downs, and the Frogs ended up winning that game 17-10. And Texas did not score an offensive touchdown. It was, the high water mark of the Joe Gillespie era, and we kind of all know how things have gone since then for the TCU defense. But it was also sort of the low moment for Quinn Ewers at UT. I mean, this was a chance for them to get a huge signature win. They were 7-point favorites going into that game, and he just couldn't find a way to push the ball down the field. Had some inconsistency throughout the season last year in his first full year as a starter, but this season has been really effective. I mean, his worst game was against Oklahoma, but his completion percentage in that ball game was still incredible. 31 of 37, 346 yards. The issue was he threw 2 interceptions. One touchdown, but 2 picks. So 2 of those misses that he had, 2 of those incompletions went to the other team. But against Kansas, 25 of 33 for 325 and a touchdown. Against Baylor, 18 of 23 with a touchdown for 293 yards. Alabama, 24 of 38, 349 yards, 3 touchdowns. That was his biggest game of the year. The Tide forced him to throw the football, and he did it effectively. And was able to push the ball downfield and make big plays vertically. But I think what you'll notice as I kind of run down his stat line is that Texas isn't asking him to throw the ball 40 times a game, right? Like, I think his most attempts this year, let me get back to this page so I can get it right, it was that 38 against Alabama, and obviously they had more trouble running against the Tide's defense than anyone else because of how physical that defense is. But Texas is at their best when they run the football, and really it's been the same story with Malik Murphy. He was 19 of 37 for 248 against Kansas State, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 16 and 25 with 2 touchdowns and a pick against BYU. But they are going to be most effective when they're running the football. Jonathan Brooks, who took over for Bijan Robinson this offseason, 166 carries, already over 1,000 yards with 1,035, averaging 6.2 yards per carry and 8 touchdowns. They also have C.J. Baxter, who's kind of their change of pace back, 69 carries, 329 yards, almost 5 yards a carry, and 3 touchdowns. So they are most effective when they're running the football. But this offense is loaded. They have skill guys all over the place. Xavier Worthy is having a huge breakout season. This has really been his most complete year as a wide receiver. 4 touchdowns, 49 receptions, 620 yards. Adonai Mitchell, the transfer from Georgia, 37 receptions for 576 yards and 8 touchdowns. And then the big guy in the middle, Jatavian Sanders, their tight end, 22 catches, 378 yards, and a touchdown. And they also have Jordan Whittington from Cuero, who's an exciting, explosive player. He hasn't had as many opportunities this year because of the emergence of Adonai Mitchell. But he's been fantastic all year long as well. And so bottom line is, regardless of who's playing QB for UT, they're going to have opportunities to make plays. And it's really more about starting by running the ball successfully. And I would expect against the TCU defense that has struggled, especially lately against the run, they're going to run downhill right at these guys and try to run around the edge until TCU finds a way to stop it and forces them to throw the football. But where Quinn has excelled is by protecting the football. I told you about that one loss this year against OU, 2 interceptions in that ball game, only 6 incompletions, but turned the ball over twice. And that and 1 interception against Kansas are the only times he's turned the ball over this year. 3 interceptions in, 7 games this year. That Houston game, he didn't finish it, but he was playing really well before he ended up getting injured. So Quinn has done a much better job of taking care of the football. Now, Malik Murphy, he threw a pick against BYU, had a couple interceptions against Kansas State that one of them was really bad, was kind of rolling one way through across his body, just a mistake by him. But he has struggled a little bit and has shown the tendency, as a lot of young quarterbacks do, to turn the ball over. And so that's going to be one huge key. If you can find a way, if it does end up being Murphy, because Kansas State, honestly, they got dominated in a lot of phases of that game, but the turnovers kept them in it. They forced 2 interceptions. They had a fumble that they recovered in plus territory and were able to capitalize on a short field. I think the next play, actually, they scored on a play-action touchdown pass down the seam. And so that was how they were able to combat, what UT was doing on offense and defense that day, was by flipping the field and creating opportunities with turnovers. So it matters to an extent because Murphy is prone to turn the ball over, and I don't think they have the consistency with the vertical passing game that they've had with Quinn, not because of lack of ability, but just because Murphy hasn't had as much time to work with these wide receivers, even though this will be his 3rd full game if he does end up starting against TCU. But the key in my mind is you have to find a way to slow down the run game first. But the reason that it's so tough to do that is because they have these weapons on the outside. And so you can't just hone in on Brooks. And, last season, that's what TCU did against Bijan Robinson. They sold out to stop the running game. It helped that they had 2 amazing corners. They still have one in Josh Newton, but in Josh Newton and Travis Hodges-Tomlinson, who could live, on an island and be effective and play well. But they had the corners to be able to play at a high level, even, when the numbers weren't matched up correctly. But you're going to have to find a way to slow down the run game first. But Quinn Ewers could be available for this football game, so we'll have to watch as the week goes on and progresses and see where we're at with that. Sonny Dykes also held his press conference on Tuesday, and so he talked about the team and a couple of things that stood out. One is he said that Josh Hoover is expected to start. Chandler continues to get healthier. They're going to evaluate him towards the end of the year. I think I asked Matt this question in the postgame show, and I was sort of like, which way do you go? Does it really matter? Both guys have struggled to be effective. But as I've thought about this more, I really lean towards giving Josh the rest of the season. And it's not so much because of what Chandler hasn't done. It's just the fact that, your team's struggling and you got a young guy in here. Give him opportunities, give him reps, and just sort of see where he's at. Give him the chance. He made some big-time throws against Texas Tech. Now, he was also very inaccurate and threw some interceptions. But at least you have a full game of film where you can sit down with him and look at things and say, okay, where do we make mistakes? Where do we see ways that we could be better? And you can continue that development against Texas, even though it's going to be a really tough matchup against a team that can do a lot of things so well. But you have that chance to say, okay, here's what they do well. Here's what they can expose us with, and how do we combat that? And so Josh Hoover is going to get the start. He's expected to be the guy, and Chandler Morris will be available if needed. But it sounds like, I guess we'll see what happens during the Baylor week. Maybe they decide to make that change. But I think with 3 more games remaining, you just kind of see where you're at with the young guy and allow him to get out there and get some valuable experience as the year continues to go on. He also said that Dalen Wright, Jack Besh, and Warren Thompson will all be out with injury. So I assume, Savion Williams, J.P. Richardson, and Jalen Robinson will be your starters. at wide receiver. And based on how the games have gone, I think Blake Knoll will be the guy that kind of works in there with Robinson. Cordell Russell is actually listed at third on the depth chart behind Robinson and Newell for what it's worth. So maybe we start to see some of him. I think he's played in 2 games this year, so you can still get 2 more games under his belt without, burning that red shirt, and give him some opportunities. Maybe this week would be a good chance to allow that since you're banged up at wide receiver. But, yeah, I feel for Dalen Wright and Jack Bech. Both those guys have been dealing with injuries all year long. Don't know exactly the severity of it, but both players have been banged up, and they're both players that TCU thought could be contributors for them this year, and it just hasn't come to fruition. And so we'll see what happens over the next few weeks, but they will not be available in the game on Saturday against Texas. And again, that's a 6:30 kick on ABC, as the Frogs will get a chance to play on national television in what has been a tough year. But an upset would be, huge if they could find a way to pull it off. When we come back, Big 12 whip around. We'll take a look at the Big 12, and also Darius Davis had a great moment last night, and I'll talk to you about how between him and Kevontae Turpin, TCU was kind of finding a niche for players in the NFL. That's coming up here on Locked On Horned Frogs. All right, everybody wants to make money, right? Like that's what we're all about here. If you're trying to find ways to get some cash, especially during football season, you love sports, you see it on YouTube here, FanDuel.com/lockedon. They have an offer going on right now, $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet. So you simply go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, you make a $5 moneyline bet, and win or lose, you automatically get $150 in bonus bets. That's free money that you get to work with. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. You can bet on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more, and they have a super convenient and easy app to use that's not hard to navigate and that you can, find exactly what kind of wagers you need to make. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. FanDuel.com/lockedon. $5 moneyline bet gets you $150 in bonus bets. They also have a safe and easy-to-use app that you can download today. FanDuel, sponsor here of the Locked On Network, an official betting partner of the NFL. I want to get to a Big 12 whip around in a minute, where we we break down, okay, what happened across the Big 12 landscape in the football world on Saturday. But I did want to take a moment to talk about something that happened on Monday Night Football last night. So the Chargers are playing the Jets. Chargers go on and they win that football game. And Darius Davis wasn't active in the passing game, but he did have a punt return for a touchdown, 87-yard punt return for a touchdown. That was the first touchdown of the ball game. Really got the team going. And he's had a pretty awesome year for San Diego, or for the LA Chargers, both returning punts and kickoffs. Only 2 attempts on kickoffs, but punt returns, 14 attempts, 232 yards, 1 touchdown, had that 87-yarder last night. Also took one back in the preseason, and they are at times giving him opportunities on the offensive side of the football. 8 catches for 38 yards. He also has 7 rushes for 75 yards. I think when they're playing the Raiders this year, it was the Raiders, because it was Trayvon Merrick who tackled him and brought him down. He was lined up in the backfield early in the game, and he took a handoff and kind of worked his way and picked his way and ran for a lot of yards. They've been using him on those like jet sweep kind of pop passes, and also giving him the ball in space. So Davis has been fantastic. And I said before the combine, I was like, I hope it works out for Darius. I know it's going to be kind of tough because he's going to have to fight, the stigma of, is he only a speed guy? Is he only somebody that you can use on special teams, because he doesn't have a lot of size? But you can obviously see that the coaching staff there, for the Chargers, they trust him. They want to get him involved not only in the special teams game, but on offense, and he finally broke one for a touchdown. And it got me thinking, I saw this kind of going out yesterday on Twitter, like, is TCU returner you? Because Kevontae Turpin is having another really good season for the Cowboys. He made the Pro Bowl last year as a special teams ace. And he's done everything except take one back for a touchdown in the kickoff and punt return game. He had a great return on a kickoff against the Eagles after they scored on their opening drive and set the Cowboys up to go score. This year on punts, last season on punts, he had 303 yards, and along with 52, he's had a 63-yard kickoff return this year. He's had 21 attempts and 508 yards. And they've got him more involved in the receiving game as well. 7 receptions for 69 yards, with the most important stat is 2 touchdowns. Had a touchdown against San Francisco earlier this year, and also had a touchdown against the Eagles in the last game where he caught the ball in the red zone. And so they're also finding ways to get him involved in the run game and in the pass game, getting him the ball in space and just allowing him to be a playmaker. And I mean, I would think like Cavante and Darius are the 2 most successful receivers in the NFL that TCU has sent out there since Jeremy Curley, I guess. I mean, Quentin Johnston hasn't made much noise yet. You know, book is still okay to be written on him, but it's been a disappointing start for QJ. He's in a loaded receiver room. There's a lot of reasons for it. Bottom line is he just hasn't been super productive as a player to this point. And so we'll see where he goes from here. But Josh Doxson and Jalen Reagor had their struggles and ended up, really being regarded as bust, if we're being honest. Reagor is still playing with the Patriots. Unfortunately, had a big drop this week, but he's making waves around the NFL. He's been with the Eagles and the Vikings and now in New England. I might have missed a stop in there somewhere. But Davis and Turpin have found their niche as guys that can return punts, return kicks, and can also make plays on offense from time to time. And it was really encouraging to see Darius take one back for a touchdown in that Monday Night Football game on a national stage, and know the guys at Locked On Chargers are excited about him. Okay, so let's get to the Big 12 whip around. We do this every Tuesday. It's your look at what happened in the rest of the Big 12. UCF, they take down Cincinnati 28-26. Cincinnati's still looking for their first Big 12 win. The Knights get their first Big 12 win. They're now 4-5 on the season and 1-5 in Big 12 play. RJ Harvey had 164 yards rushing for UCF, almost 9 yards a carry, and 3 touchdowns. John Rhys Plumlee is back and healthy. Pretty pedestrian stat line, 13-23 for 165 yards, no touchdowns, but they just use that running game to be effective, and UCF gets a Big 12 win. West Virginia, they had no trouble with BYU, 37-7 win. I can't make much sense of BYU. I mean, I guess I can. I just don't think they're a very good football team. They've got 2 Big 12 wins, and one of them was against Cincinnati. The other one was against a Jake Strong-led Texas Tech team, which looks very different than a Baron Morton-led Texas Tech team, as TCU can attest to that by what happened on Thursday night. But Mountaineers still being really effective on the defensive side of the football. And Shaheem White, 16 carries for 146 yards. CJ Donaldson, 14 carries for 102 yards. And so, again, another team that got it done on the ground. They continue to roll. Really good season for Neil Brown. I mean, they're not going to be – they've lost 2 games now. I don't see them being a team that can make it to Arlington, but they were picked to finish 14th in the Big 12, and they certainly haven't done that. They found a system that works for them. Houston beats Baylor 25-24 in overtime. Cougars go for 2 in overtime to win that ball game. Donovan Smith keeps it himself and gets in the end zone. And so Houston's now 2-4 in Big 12 play. Baylor is as well. Baylor 3-6 now on the season. I believe the Bears get K-State this week. Another pretty uninspiring performance by Baylor at home. Not really working for Dave Aranda's club right now. Nice win for Dana Holgorsen in Houston, though. At least, another Big 12 win that they can stack now. And gave up a drive to Baylor to tie that ball game, but then they come back and win it in overtime with that big 2-point conversion. Kansas knocks off Iowa State 28-21. Jayhawks are now 4-2 on Big 12 play. Jason Bean continues to be the guy as Jalen Daniels deals with an injury. He had 287 yards passing and a touchdown. And, yeah, they beat Iowa State in Ames, which is a huge win on a cold night. Nice game for Kansas. I talked about that Texas and K-State game earlier, but Texas wins in overtime. Kansas State went for it on 4th and goal, or I think the 4-yard line, to try to go win that ball game. Just couldn't do it. Texas turned the ball over a couple times in the second half and gave Kansas State short fields, but were still able to recover and win that football game. Tough, gritty win for a Texas team with their backup quarterback against Kansas State, who was coming in as the hottest team in the Big 12 going into that football game. And then finally, Oklahoma State over Oklahoma 27-24. Last bedlam for the foreseeable future. Ollie Gordon, fights through some injuries there in the second half, has 137 yards rushing on 33 carries. And Alan Bowman has been a steadying presence. Oklahoma State, their last 3 games are against UCF, Cincinnati, and I believe they close out the season with Houston. They have the inside track to get to Arlington right now. What an amazing turnaround for Mike Gundy's team. And I know Oklahoma State fans were excited that they were able to, get that last win and get bragging rights in what many are calling the final Bedlam game we could ever see, at least in the football ranks. When we come back, we'll talk about TCU basketball. Both the men and women got a victory yesterday. That's coming up here on Locked On Horned Frogs. Gametime app, it's where you need to go to get tickets. There's all kinds of sporting events going on right now, college football and college basketball. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime's a fast and easy way to buy tickets, not just for sports, also music, comedy, and more. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and you can see exactly where your seat is going to be, what type of view you're going to have when you open up the app. App is really easy to use. The tickets go right to your phone. You don't have to wonder, okay, do I have to go to my wallet? Do I have to go to my email? Nope, they just go right there to your phone. It's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Buy tickets in a couple seconds with just 2 taps of a button. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. They have flash deals and sponsored deals for tickets for football, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, just download that Gametime app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONCollege, and get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. TCU men's and women's basketball. Both teams get victories in last night's games, and both teams really looked impressive and looked pretty smooth with a lot of new players on the floor and a lot of new faces just in huge spots. Both teams looked like they had a pretty good sense of what they wanted to do and were able to do it effectively. The men winning at Southern 108-75, and it was really a team effort. A lot of guys scored. Your leading scorer in the basketball game, though, was Micah Peavy, who got the start at one of the guard spots, 21 points on 10 of 13 shooting. And I said this before, the season. I was like, if Micah can find himself being more consistent with the jump shot, he's going to be a really special player because he plays such good defense and really affects the game in a lot of ways. His jump shot wasn't super effective yesterday. 0 of 2 from 3, 1 of 3 from the free throw line. Actually airballed the free throw on his first attempt, which is not ideal. But he was really confident putting the ball on the deck and getting to the rim. And he basically did that anytime he wanted. Also got some points in transition, finished around the rim well, had an and one at one point where he went left, took the contact, put it off the glass, and put it in. And so he looked a lot more confident on the opposite side of the ball. I still want to see him develop more consistency shooting the basketball because teams are going to force him to prove that he can hit those open jumpers. But still found a way to be effective even though he wasn't perfect and was super efficient, 10 of 13 from the floor. Jameer Nelson Jr. was really smooth, 14 points on 6 of 8 from the field. Had a step-back 3 at one point that looked great. Jacoby Coles is somebody that I kind of forgot about, honestly. Like, I think with all the newcomers, I forgot just how good he was last year. 17 points on 5 of 9 shooting, hit a couple threes, had a couple moments where he went to the basket and looked effective. The team overall did great. There was one stretch in about midway through the first half where they had some bench guys out there, and Southern came out and they were trapping and pressing and turned the ball over like 6 times in that stretch. And you can't do that, right? And it was lazy passes. It wasn't really understanding fully what they needed to do against the press to be effective. So that was discouraging. But after that, they were honestly great. And shot the 3 a lot better tonight. Greg, who listens to the show, he emailed me, and he was talking about just how good they were shooting the basketball. Trey Tennyson knocked down some threes. He was 3 of 5 from three-point land with 13 points. Avery Anderson shot the ball well. He looked good. He was 2 of 4 from 3. Overall, 43% from beyond the arc, 10 of 23 on the day. Emmanuel Miller, not his best night. He only had 9 points. and he dealt with some foul trouble. So did Ernest Uday, who actually didn't end up recording a point in the night. He only played 13 minutes, though. But a much deeper front court. Chuck O'Bannon came in and had some good minutes. He played good defense, eventually fouled out, unfortunately, but he had an offensive rebound and a putback. He made some plays for the team. So this is a deep basketball team, and I think they have a lot of different guys that can go make things happen. I like what I saw from them. Jamie Dixon did say, I saw Jamie Plunkett from Horned Frog Blitz mention this. He said in his post-game comments he wasn't happy with the defense, and especially in the first half, they did struggle defensively. Now, Southern also hit some tough shots. They hit a couple tough threes. They had, a couple guys that hit like tough follow-away jumpers in the high post. And so you can't always do stuff about that, but the rotations were sloppy, weren't always there when they needed to be. And so, yeah, you're going to have to clean that up. They play Omaha on Thursday night, and that'll be game 2 for the Frogs. But overall, I think, they struggled early in the season last year as everybody was kind of meshing and coming together against some of those lesser opponents. But like I said, aside from that kind of rough stretch to begin the game, they were outstanding and dominated throughout. And the TCU women, they beat Oral Roberts 76-56 yesterday afternoon. That game was a 4:00 start. Your leading scorer was Madison Connor, 30 points in 28 minutes, 9-19 from the field and 6 of 13 from 3. And she broke a record for most points in the TCU debut with 30. I said yesterday Sedona Prince and Jaden Owens were going to be kind of the leaders on this team, and Owens only had 4 points. She did have 7 assists, though. Prince had 15 points on the night and 10 rebounds, so she had a double-double. But it was really Connor that took the lead, and this team can score. They're going to shoot the three a lot, and they can do a lot of things well. They're going to be a fun team to watch. So both TCU men's and women's basketball start the season with victories. We'll have coverage of those teams all season long. We'll have more coverage of Texas tomorrow. This is Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.